There's no way that you can go into a pub and have this. There are 50,000 people. They're just drawing it up. I didn't realize this. Okay. Everyone here? Everyone ready? First session. Hold order. Justine, you're up.
So Mayor Smith was looking through his monthly magazine newsletter that he gets from the Oregon Mayors Association. And in there was a little tiny, which made it much bigger for you to see. There was a little tiny thing on one of the pages, and he had come to me and asked me about it. And it was about mandatory reporting. And so there was a House bill that was passed, House Bill 3071, during the 2021 legislative session. And all elected officials are required to report suspected child abuse, which makes you mandatory reporters. So we can talk about different ways that our liability insurance company about what was the best way to ensure that everybody actually took the training. So we decided that we report session, take the training together. So it's 27 minutes provided by the state of Oregon through the Oregon Department of Human Resources. It's a public report
A little research.
document. So anybody can go out and see it. There is quite an extensive list of people who are mandatory reporters. And so there are different ways of getting the training, but they do suggest that everybody take this 30-minute training. It's 27 minutes, I think, but they say 30 minutes. I put the mandatory reporter card, so if you just need a quick reference. And then I put the two manuals that CIS, or the League of Oregon Cities, suggested that we have. It's the actual document that is on the training website from the state of Oregon. This is their manual, and it's a little bit more comprehensive and in depth than the shorter abridged version that the Oregon Municipal Handbook, League of Oregon Cities, puts out, Chapter 30 of Abuse Reporting. So there's the actual ORS if you would like to go out there and actually look at the reading, but I think both of these documents do a good job of just kind of translating, and in 27 minutes you should know everything this document is on.
Thank you. Okay, we ready to go?
Reminds me of are we working on the new system?
Well, we got this one fixed.
Sounds great.
That's because I'm doing it together here. Trying to figure out how to share screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with Christy. She's going to have to share it. It's mine.
I will tell you that this last week, we did have an incident here in Earhart where there were community members that stepped up and called here at City Hall and Chad went over where there was a young child. He was very young, who had left home that his parents did not know he was gone. He has some social issues, and so they thought he was hiding because he does that, but he ended up running all the way down Pacific Way. Cleared up and they couldn't catch him. So Chad went and helped, And, that particular scenario could be. Four, five, no, he was in school.
Yeah, I think we're maybe seven.
But
So they are, just want to get away. If in that scenario, if running away from parents to qualify, that would probably be an reporting situation. It's part of the hand that for us and all that's the kind of scenario. From stealing like 12 hours.
I would make a joke about that.
Almost there. Chris, you want to hit like the board? You. Negative. You may have to pull out your headphones.
It's always the directed and the overhead projector. You're doing himself pulling the TV around.
No.
The speaker is terrible.
Speaking, we are trying to listen.
All I hear is your guys' but that's all that I hear. Right. I mean, I can play it, but then when you guys talk, it plays it over it.
I think we're gonna have to unplug the TV and then plug it in directly to the.
Hold on. All children deserve to be nurtured and kept safe by those responsible for. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Hey, you gotta shut the doors then, because I have to have everything on full blast in here. Okay. Yep. Mandatory reporting of child abuse. All children deserve to be nurtured and kept safe by those responsible for care. Most parents and caregivers can provide adequate care and protection to their children. However, some parents struggle to keep their children safe and well cared for. Sadly, there are Justine's the little microphone muted.
Is it? It's not.
The little one on the table.
It's not.
Hmm.
There's only us on it, so keep carrying it over here.
Are you kidding me? Oh. Anything electrical, anything has to do with computers, anything. When he used to take care of the transmitter, the cable network, until they caught him up there. My mom, and the fire. It's just absolutely. Wise or electrical wise or this kind of stuff. You would, I could law.
Alex. Alex.
We have a session, it's just not here.
Oh, I hope.
All right, we're out.
Just, I had this discussion. How many brochures?
There are children across our state who face threats to their safety from within their own home.
Did that work?
I'm sorry.
You got to unplug.
That was a study that was not checked. I really gave a whole presentation.
Okay, I'm gonna give this a shot first and then I will give you a shot in just a second.
It's a public.
I'm sorry to say, you're 65.
Okay, we're gonna have to try to see with you.
Mandatory reporting of child abuse. Mandatory reporting of child abuse. All children deserve to be nurtured and kept safe by those responsible for their care. Most parents and caregivers can provide adequate care and protection to their children. However, some parents struggle to keep their children safe and well cared for. Sadly, there are children across our state who face threats to their safety from within their own home. These vulnerable children rely on others, relatives, neighbors, and community professionals, including mandatory reporters, to help ensure their safety. This video is a brief overview of mandatory reporting of child abuse in Oregon. You, as a mandatory reporter, should not rely only on information in this video, but should also consult the child abuse reporting law to more fully understand your responsibilities. You may also reference the DHS guide, What You Can Do About Child Abuse. Approximately 75% of all child abuse reports are made by mandatory reporters. Mandatory reporters are public and private professionals required by law to report suspected child abuse. Most of these professionals interact with children and families on a regular basis. They include full-time and part-time employees, as well as volunteers. Some examples of mandatory reporters include medical practitioners, law enforcement personnel, employees of a public or private organization providing child-related services or activities, public and private school employees, and members of the clergy. For a complete list of all mandatory reporters, refer to Oregon Revised Statute 419B.005. Under Oregon law, any mandatory reporter must immediately report suspected abuse if that person has reasonable cause to believe a child they come in contact with may have been abused, or a person they come in contact with may have abused a child. Not every person is a mandatory reporter, but everyone is urged to report suspected child abuse to ensure the safety of children in our community. Now, let's talk about child abuse. A child is defined as a person under 18 years old. Child also includes a person under 21 years old who lives in or receives care or services from a child caring agency. A child caring agency refers to a private agency or private organization licensed by DHS, including residential care or other similar care or services for children. Even though you may have concerns about a child, it's not always clear whether abuse is taking place. Let's take a closer look at the definitions of child physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, mental injury, and threat of harm. Physical abuse is defined in Oregon law as any assault of a child and any physical injury to a child which has been caused by other than accidental means, including any injury which appears to be at variance with the explanation given of the injury. As defined in Oregon law, sexual abuse includes subjecting a child to sexual contact, rape of a child, which includes but is not limited to rape, sodomy, unlawful sexual penetration, and incest. Sexual exploitation, including but not limited to contributing to the sexual delinquency of a minor and any other conduct that allows, employs, authorizes, permits, induces, or encourages a child to engage in performing for people to observe. It also includes photographing, filming, tape recording, or other exhibition that, in whole or in part, depicts sexual conduct or contact, sexual abuse involving a child, or rape of a child, but not including any conduct that is part of any investigation or is designed to serve educational or other legitimate purposes. And sex trafficking, including allowing, permitting, encouraging, or hiring a child to engage in a commercial sex act or to purchase sex with a minor. Neglect of a child includes, but is not limited to, the failure to provide adequate food, clothing, shelter, or medical care that is likely to endanger the health or welfare of the child. Neglect also includes buying or selling a person under the age of 18. Neglect can be permitting a child under 18 to enter or remain in or upon premises where methamphetamines are being manufactured. Finally, neglect can mean unlawful exposure of a child to a controlled substance or to the unlawful manufacturing of a cannabinoid extract that subjects a child to a substantial risk of harm to the child's health or safety. Mental injury is any mental injury to a child that includes only observable and substantial impairment of the child's mental or psychological ability to function caused by cruelty to the child. Threat of harm is when a parent or caregiver subjects a child to a substantial risk of harm to the child's health or welfare. Remember that children often can't or won't speak up if their parents or caregivers are abusing them. They rely on you and others in the community to recognize something isn't right and to act to help protect them. Any single concern may or may not mean that abuse is occurring, but observing any of these indicators, especially when more than one is present, should prompt you to think about what might be happening. Consider each potential indicator within the context of what is typical for the child, their family, their culture, and their community. You do not have to be certain about abuse to make a report.
Hi, I'm Edgar, and I've been a school teacher in Oregon for many years. And because I interact with children as part of my job, I'm also a mandatory reporter. I enjoy getting to know my students and their families. Helping a child to learn and grow is one of the best parts of my job. So when I have a concern about how a child is doing, or I'm worried about what might be happening at home, I take that concern very seriously. Of course, when it's a small concern, I speak to the parents to understand if we can support them or if they need help. But when the concern about the student is bigger that I can address on my own, or the student has spoken to me directly about a concerning situation at home, I consider making a mandatory report of child abuse. I try to remember the process like this: recognize, record, and report. This 3-step process helps me stay focused on what I need to do to fulfill my obligation as a mandatory reporter.
Let's talk about the first part of the process: recognize. Recognize is knowing the signs that abuse may have occurred or may be occurring. As we discuss how to recognize common indicators of child abuse, it is important to also recognize that each of us has our own beliefs about what constitutes good parenting, children's rights within their own families, and how we believe parents and caregivers should react to issues of concern. These beliefs come from our cultural and community norms, our own family experiences, and other life experiences. Of course, there are many ways to raise a child, and approaches to parenting vary widely throughout different communities. When we have a concern about a child from a different culture than our own, or who belongs to a community that we don't understand well, we should consider whether the concern relates to parenting practices and personal beliefs that may be different from our own, but are not necessarily abuse. Research suggests that child abuse occurs across racial and ethnic groups at similar rates. However, when we look at who is reported for abuse, we see that children of color, particularly Native American and African American children, are reported far more often than expected. This is called racial disproportionality. The following explains what is known about racial disproportionality in the child welfare system and how you can help correct this problem in Oregon. In child welfare, the word disproportionality means that certain groups of people are either underrepresented or overrepresented in our system when compared to their peer group in the general population. In Oregon and across the nation, children of color are overrepresented in the child welfare system at alarming rates. African American children are almost twice as likely to be the subjects of abuse allegations than are white children. In addition, once a call comes in about an African American child, it is more likely to be substantiated, and that child is more likely to be removed from home and stay away from home longer than a white child. There are almost 3 times more abuse allegations of Native American children than of white children, and Native American children are less likely to achieve permanency. As a professional interacting with children on a regular basis, it is critical you understand personal bias and how it may affect you as a mandatory reporter. Ask yourself, have I always called to report my concerns of abuse when I believed that a child was in danger? It is vital that you do not hesitate to call if you truly believe any child is in harm's way due to abuse. We all harbor personal biases. Whether we like to admit it or not, we all grew up being bombarded by images and messages driven by racism, prejudice, or racial privilege that we may not even be aware of. As we now talk about warning signs of abuse, consider your personal beliefs and biases and how they may affect what you see or hear. What are the warning signs? We group them into 3 categories: physical signs present on the child, behavioral signs or statements made by the child, or behavioral signs or statements made by the parent or caregiver. Physical signs present on the child may include injuries on parts of the body that are not typical, Kids bruise their shins, bang their knees, and scrape their elbows. These are expected for active children. However, injuries to their back, neck, buttocks, or genitals are more likely to be associated with abuse. Injuries for which the child has no explanation or a reason that isn't logical. Medical, dental, vision, or mental health needs that appear to go unaddressed. Poor height or weight growth when there is no identified medical cause. Or a child who has a sexually transmitted infection. Behavioral signs or statements made by the child may include regularly runs away from home, the appearance of extreme fatigue on a regular basis, a pattern of stealing food or complaining of hunger, a child who cries, cowers, or otherwise indicates that they do not feel safe in the presence of a parent or caregiver, losing skills already developed, including incontinence when potty training has been well established, attempting suicide, or displaying behaviors that self-injure, statements about being unsupervised before they can safely care for themselves, statements they fear their parent or caregiver or don't want to go home, asking others to supply necessities, or direct statements about experiencing abuse. Behavioral signs or statements made by the parent or caregiver may include disregard for the child's feelings, needs, or emotions, seeing the child as entirely bad, evil, or worthless, describing the child in sexual terms, or implying that the child may provoke sexual contact from others, expecting the child to behave in ways unrealistic for their abilities or development, seeming to purposely isolate the child, including removing them from school or other activities, or offering conflicting, unconvincing, or no explanation for injuries or events. While parents with disabilities may need different kinds of support to raise a child, a disability or mental health condition alone does not constitute abuse. When you notice one or more signs, you may be unsure whether abuse has occurred and whether you need to report. But you should think critically about what else you know and what you've observed from that child and family. Never second-guess yourself if you believe a child has been abused. The Child Welfare Screener will help sort out your concern. It's better to report or discuss concerns with a professional who can help than to remain silent. Common situations that cause concern for mandatory reporters. In addition to the indicators discussed previously, mandatory reporters often become aware of specific circumstances that raise concern about a child's safety and well-being. Let's address these situations so you have a better understanding of how child welfare considers each one. Domestic violence. Domestic violence means a pattern of coercive behavior, which can include physical, sexual, economic, and emotional abuse that an individual uses against a past or current intimate partner to gain power and control in a relationship. Exposure to domestic violence is not considered child abuse in and of itself. However, there is a high incidence of child abuse in families where domestic violence is occurring. When a child has experienced an injury, expresses concern for their safety related to domestic violence, or when you believe the child will be harmed related to domestic violence, report it. Physical discipline. Physical discipline that is reasonable and appropriate to the child's age, size, and development is not considered physical abuse. Physical discipline is not permitted in public schools, licensed child care, or state-licensed or certified care such as foster homes, group homes, or child-caring agencies. Unsupervised children. Oregon laws do not designate the age when a child can be left unsupervised. However, a child under the age of 10 cannot be left unattended for such a period of time as may likely endanger their health or welfare. Age is not necessarily a good indicator of a child's ability to keep themselves safe without supervision. A child's maturity level, ability to meet their own needs and act appropriately in an emergency, along with the physical safety of the home environment, are all factors when considering whether a child may be experiencing neglect by being left home alone. Failure to obtain medical care. A parent or caregiver failing to obtain care for an obvious or identified medical, developmental, dental, vision, or mental health need may constitute child neglect. Generally, the failure is likely to result in a significant health issue for the child. For example, a caregiver who does not provide ongoing treatment for a child with asthma or diabetes risks a significant consequence for the child, up to and including death, if the condition isn't regularly monitored and care delivered. On the other hand, a caregiver who delays a doctor's visit for weeks for an ongoing cough and runny nose, even when others note concerns, may not be making the best choice, but wouldn't be considered neglectful under the law, because the outcome isn't likely to be serious. Substance use during pregnancy. Concerns about newborns who show symptoms of exposure to substances or have been known to be exposed before birth should be reported to child welfare. Federal law requires that state child welfare agencies have procedures to assess whether these children affected by substances will be safe and well cared for if discharged into the care of their parents. Oregon cannot assign reports of child abuse concerning expectant mothers with no children in the home. However, it is best to document concerns about parental behavior, conditions, or circumstances that may endanger a newborn child prior to the birth. This information would be considered if child welfare received a future report once the child is born. This section described key indicators that child abuse may be occurring, common situations that are often concerns for mandatory reporters, and the importance of considering the impact of personal views and biases on reporting. Next, we will review the types of information you will want to have on hand when making a report.
When contacting the Oregon Child Abuse Hotline to make a report of abuse, keep a record of the date and time you called and the name of the person to whom you spoke. When making a report, it is helpful to have as much information as possible about the child, the family, and the situation. Provide information about the extent of the abuse and the circumstances surrounding the abuse. It's helpful to include any history of previous episodes of abuse you suspected or are aware of. If known, provide the child's, parents, and caregivers' full legal names, dates of birth or approximate ages, current locations, and contact information. You should also provide names and contact information for non-custodial parents, siblings, and other children and/or adults living in the home. Additional useful information, if you have it, may include name of school or daycare, the family's preferred language and whether an interpreter is needed, any concerns regarding the safety of a worker assigned to assess the child's situation, general functioning of the child, including medical diagnosis, disabilities, or unique care needs, observations or statements made to you or others about the child's functioning, information that leads you to suspect domestic violence, observations or concerns about substance use, indications of mental health impairment in the parent, or anything that seems to affect the parent's ability to adequately and safely respond to the child's needs. If other concerns have ever been discussed with the family, whether by you or someone else, report the reaction and what steps were taken to address the situation with the family. It is also important to report about what is going well in the family. Information about strengths, successes, and areas of no concern can help paint the whole picture. This includes information about the family's support system, such as the presence of extended family, involvement in the community or religious groups, cultural supports, or other resources. Again, this is helpful information if you have it, but you are required to report concerns even when you do not have all the requested information. Finally, federal law and Oregon law require child welfare to identify any Native American and/or Alaska Native ancestry related to the child and their biological parents. It is critical to know whether the child or parents are Native American and which tribes they may be affiliated with. The law states that federally recognized tribes have a right to intervene in cases involving members or possible members of their tribe. Oregon state law affirms our commitment to work with tribes to ensure the safety and well-being of their children and families. Child welfare works closely with tribes to make sure this occurs. This section described the type of information you should be prepared to share, if known, when you make a report.
Now you will learn about making a report itself, including when and to whom the report should be made. You'll also learn what may happen as a result of a call to a child welfare screener. If you witnessed possible abuse, you are the responsible reporter. You cannot ask someone else to make this report for you. By providing your name, relationship to the child or family, and contact information, you have met your responsibility as a mandatory reporter and allowed child welfare staff to contact you if needed. Failure to report is a violation of the law and carries a maximum penalty of $2,000. Mandatory reporters can also be sued for damages in civil court for failing to report. In Oregon and in most other states, there are laws that keep the names, addresses, and other identifying information about the person who makes a child abuse report confidential. A small number of cases may involve criminal or juvenile court action, and you may be called as a witness. The law requires a report of suspected child abuse be made immediately. So as a mandatory reporter, you are required to report child abuse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of whether your knowledge came in your official capacity or outside work hours. Reports can't wait until later, a more convenient time, or the next business day, even if the child is not currently in danger. For example, if you stop for groceries on your way home from work and observe child abuse in the checkout line, you are still required to report and must report immediately. If you think someone is being hurt now or is in immediate danger, call 911. For all other reports of child abuse, call the Oregon Child Abuse Hotline at 1-855-503-SAFE or contact your local law enforcement agency. The screener who answers your call will ask a wide range of questions regarding the child, family, and your specific concerns. Once the information is gathered, a response will be determined. When the report is assigned for CPS assessment, this means child welfare assigns someone called a CPS worker to meet with the child and family to determine whether abuse occurred and assesses the safety of the child. The CPS worker assigned to the child and family may contact you to discuss your concerns. It is the role of child welfare to protect children from current and future abuse. It is only when it appears there is no way for a child to be safe in the care of their parent or caregiver that child welfare, law enforcement, or the courts may intervene to remove the child. Such actions are intended to be temporary and must be supported with evidence. Even when children are removed from their home, the law requires that ongoing efforts be made so that the child may be safely returned to their family as soon as possible. The ultimate goal of intervention is the safety of the child. Not all reports are assigned for CPS assessment. When the screener determines the information gathered does not meet criteria to assign, the report may be closed at screening. When a report is closed at screening, the information is still recorded, and if another report is made about any child or adult in the family in the future, the previously reported information can be reviewed. Even when a report is closed at screening, there may be other agencies in the community who may be able to help and support the family in meeting the child's needs. Once you make a report of child abuse, the screener or CPS worker can tell you whether the report was assigned, whether abuse occurred, and whether services were offered to the family. As a mandatory reporter, you have met your reporting obligation whether or not the report is assigned for CPS assessment. While it can feel disappointing when the outcome isn't what you expect, know there are many avenues where a child and family can be helped. If you have concerns about a screening decision, you may ask to speak to a screening supervisor.
Thank you for taking time to learn more about your role as a mandatory reporter
You are often the critical link between a child who needs help
and a response that can offer protection and support.
when you use your professional skills to recognize the signs of abuse.
Record critical information to prepare for making the report.
Then report that concern.
You're fulfilling your legal obligation and using your voice and power on behalf of a child who is counting on you.
Thank you for the many ways you contribute to our state and your communities.
You are part of the safety net for children and families, and it truly matters.
Any questions about it? Not that I can really answer all of them. I've been part of that a couple of times. Not personally, but and I've always been very satisfied with the people that are working there. The lady who taught this to the fire department did mention that disconnect between, well, should I or shouldn't I, is probably one of the more scarier places for what CPS, it's at. And if you do suspect something, go through the process as you saw at the end. There are other avenues. It's not just that everything is going to happen as the way you think that they should. Sometimes they're covered by another agency, or it is not as serious as we think. But what she said is very helpful. Is that when you start getting multiple reports, well, that's probably not a thing, and then something starts happening. They put that story together, and it's better for them to be able to put that.
So the child that you guys had around, right, and you guys helped with, you may want for them.
I think it'll be from that because yeah, because I was just going to get it, and if you're going to just put a meeting and actually would come pick the person up, please weren't here. Yes, and I know that Chief Josh had, and he's since been doing follow-up. He's doing good. So it works. Questions about that? Okay. Going to the next one. Okay. So let's see. Nobody's on except for us and Christy. All right. So the way that this came about is through conversations. Yes, we know we need to get some signs out in the community. Yes, a lot of our signs need to be replaced. And we have parks, more people here, more questions about the ridge path, names of parks, locations, that sort of thing. And we really don't have a sign policy for the city here. We don't, other than our zone code dictates what signs can go there. But we don't have a policy within the city, how we're going to signs, how we're going to look like. But I think there's a lot of ideas about what our science look at, as much as giving you some information about what city staff, guys about this, how our science should look initially, potentially, that's my ideas. But we wanted to give you the opportunity to think about this as well and potentially expand upon this idea. The science that we have are international in this stuff. We're going to have the old, so we're going to old, so we're not very clean, and a lot of them need to be replaced. On the top page, let's do some information about the discussion. We'll go through the packet really quickly. So I have some good discussion points. On the next page, zone code of parks. The parks and trails is really what we're talking about, right? Street signs, stop signs, and that sort of thing. Even though a lot of those need to be replaced, what our need is for, we had a notice that came from CIS on to one notice that hey, parks, people that have parks, and municipalities that have parks, you look like they're not, that they were not covered under our identity anymore, as there was a case in Newport where a lady was going down a trail. The trail was a huge trail. She fell on that trail. Tried to claim immunity for the law, but it was decided that the state did have it until it was appealed. And in the appellate court, the court decided that the city was not immune, that they were responsible. The city tried to say that they this immunity allows, have unnatural trails, beach trails, that sort of thing. But the court turned around and said, yes, but she was on a trail getting to the beach. The trail to the beach. But she wasn't recreating at that point. She was traveling. So she went and the city had court loss. So CIS said, hey, we're not sure exactly what this means, but we may be looking at signs that say use it or now, looking at ways to lessen our liability over these types of situations, I started thinking about what the signs look like, and I didn't have any idea of where they would look like. I knew that we have signs all over town, but we don't have that kind of sign. So zone code, that's the reason that kind of sparked this idea. So this is the zone code, and on this page, just really quickly, the sign requirements for the public, semi-public, and parks are such. And the conditional uses. 12 square feet. Parks. Prairie signs. I see. And then I think this kind of covers us in the fireworks and the other announcement signs, parks and things like that. No restriction for the types of signs that can go in here. But the only outfit that can put a sign in the park is the city.
Okay. So how many parks do we have in the city? Yes, Centennial Park down here, and Trail Center, whatever it is. Okay. That is the little park. Okay. Whatever our boundary is, and I'd like to know where the medallions are. Calls survey, okay? Because we're only responsible at that point. Everything after that is state parks. Perhaps when we start talking about this woman going down to the beach, was she in fact on the city property or was she on state property?
So the state or the CIS is putting together agree on their opinions on this as well. Okay. But it was their initial this was essentially city parks that they're responsible for. It we do have a lot of parts that are really doing some trails that we didn't have to, so I don't know exactly how it works. I just know that we're gonna have to probably put out some signs that says, use around this.
Okay, what about all the people that are down on Mill Beach? Because I know that Ellen Gadsby, or Ellen Gadsby, right? I mean, she owns out about 500 feet into the ocean. Those people that are coming down off of Wellington, right? And they get down on the beach and turn to the left a little bit, and they're on her private property.
Yeah, what used to be, I'm not sure about the private property side of things, but we could be community part of this, like, even a trail that was not, managed, it was a natural trail. The Rich Path is a good example of it. Our insurance company passed it, it was better for us not to pay the Rich Path, we still do that. But that is the idea that's changed.
It's,
It's not asphalted, and the trail itself is not that engineered. You know, so those things add like holes. At the time, they said that that's a natural trail that actually has less liability than what it is if you build an engineered trail. I think that's all.
Is there talk about paving the Rich Path? Exactly.
It's really difficult as it is.
Yeah. But my point is, you know, where city property ends out where the well field is. And where state parks land, because, you know, we put signs, you know, on the trailheads leading down, and then maybe another sign saying city limits, you're not.
I can tell you my last conversation was parks, the state park people, where their boundary is, and their argument is.
Listen, I've had plenty of meetings in the time I was in the fire department. They park are lazy. It has been surveyed.
We have a
The federal government surveying from the Mexican border to Canadian. When Bill Haley and those guys out of Kansas tried to put in, you know, 13% of coastal property is privately owned. 10% of that is in Canada. So in the 60s, they tried to pull it up for federal hotel properties, say this is our property, jump out about non-call guys, federal. Forced the government to survey all coastlines. There are medallions out here in the same as to where that private land, which is the city, and public land, which is state park. Because after all, on the west designated the beaches and mountains.
Well, maybe this was 5 years ago, that had this conversation, maybe something has changed, and they have better knowledge at this point, I don't know. But at the time, they said, well, probably somewhere where the Free Beach Trail is.
The people that are doing this, the Bird Beach Trail is on the line where the state parks.
They were kind of wishy-washy about it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations since then, and they seem to be on top of it now. I'm not sure if Justin had any idea what it was talking to you 5 years ago. But there's I can show you on this map that's stated. One is on the map, one is on our GIS system as well. So we're able to look at the side that we know. And the Burberry Beach Trail follow that one.
Okay, so we can go back to the signs and stuff that we assigned ourselves. The knowledge of where our property lines are is one thing, and it would be good to have that so we can end our liability in those areas. I personally like to see some that's been chewed up because it's fallen down or they've been cut out on top of the ridge. Not engineered, and then little divots for people that are a little involved there in the team.
So I think it is.
So much time. You spent so much time.
It works for a while. Yeah, I think it's been about 3 years since we got started.
You know, they've got those, guys chopping chickens and trees. And if they dump it at the corner at each intersection of the bridge path, we could just. Oh, that's just the issue.
I'm understanding correctly, we're saying, I want to do this new case decision. For the first that this woman was hurt in an area that was within the first. We can see. You're saying we have similar exposure because of things like rich cop. Regardless of that, I'm not clear whether you're saying shouldn't use more engineering or shouldn't do it any more engineering, but it's our liability, it is our risk. But the signs that you're proposing.
But CIS said, they're not done with this topic either. It's gone to appeal again. I think that the city report is very important. To try to get a decision based on this. So that's what CIS is saying. We're not quite too sure, but we want to make you aware of this. And that signage can help. And if you did put something on there saying it'll help you between now and then, but you're putting together their thoughts on this. And so we don't have to make a change after this very moment. Maybe we should, and that's for our insurance company, that's kind of figure out. Yeah, what a sign would look like if we did produce it was the question. No, it doesn't have to. It can. It does not have to.
Oh, yeah, you know, I'm putting up a sign as a deviation responsibility.
No, but yeah. So maybe they're not going to be really good feedback on exactly what we should do. But we've got other signs that we need as well. You know, we've got Duncan's crossing that has a huge path, and there's a trail change to where the directional signs can get through. There are signs that's supposed to say no horse, right? Or ridge path trail, you know, to guide people to it. Or in the park, or working on a sign for the persons and Berkeley Stewardship regards to the park of the donation each year. We don't quite know what it's going to look like. And the city staff can start producing them, but you're going to end up with some different signs around the town. I'll show you what that looks like in this package. The one that starts with the card, and I'll come back to those later. So that's the first part of the package. Second part of the package is just our current logos that we have for the city of Europe.
Before we get to defendants. Okay, so what you're saying is the signs will help. It certainly can't hurt, so there's no reason not to do that. But the cost, well, other than the cost, but it's the cost of signs is not, but if they need to be designed, are we the right entity to design them, or do you design something, or is it just going to be the parks?
First, the Parks and Planning Commission, I talked about this through this at the time. So at times they're not interested to kind of go through this. They just want direction. City and the cities that I worked with recently, they really don't have a sign maintenance and a design policy. They really are, but they have notebooks and ideas of the ways that they make signs and they want to continue to do so. And that's really as far as I kind of wanted to get here today, was to use some examples of some signs so that we can begin designing and bring them to you. The planning commission could take this one. Yes. But last few things that I asked them to do, it was just like, they weren't interested. I'm picking them up.
Well, we can change that.
is what we're asking them to do.
Well, you're not asking them to do anything, that's why I'm bringing this to you, so we can have this discussion, and we can decide where to go to next. Yeah. So, okay, I'll start going through the pack. And the ideas that we have, is what are the signs that are going to look like for the parks? Are we going to get a color for the signs? Do we have a specific look that we'd like to? Is there something that you'd like to see? Would you like to have a logo attached to the signs as they're around town? Or would you just like students to have to take care of the signs if you feel that you are not concerned with how it is?
I don't want city staff designing the signs and then us being stuck with something that we don't like.
Let me show you some signs that city staff has designed without asking. Okay. Right. So, just to give you an idea, so here's an example of one that we have that's about to be made. This is for the tennis courts and the pickleball situation. That's your question. This is an example of what we already have when the water treatment facility was putting together. We needed signage. We quickly put some signage together, and this matches that. Those are the signs that are on the tennis courts. I need to make these two signs, and they're ready to go. This is actually the next sign that they made, signs one is set to be made. And I wanted to show you that that's one of those that we came up with.
I have a question.
Yes.
Pickleball net entry on the very bottom, for net usage reminder, no standing, driving, or any other uses, what does that pertain to? How can you write it? Yeah.
It's under the NC reminder
Yes.
section, so no standing on the nets, right on the nets, right on the nets.
You sit on the crossbar and get pushed around.
There's reasons of it.
Oh, that makes more sense, thank you.
Yes. Now, we just look at the signs.
Or on after standing, no standing on, riding, or any other uses. So then no standing or riding on. Yeah, no standing or riding on or any other uses.
I think that these signs look really nice.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with these. I just had a question as to whether this is something we're supposed to be doing, or if there's, separation of powers and the planning commission is to be doing, helping us plan. And what they look like. It seems like we are.
Sharon, do you want to speak to that? You kind of see it from both sides. I think when we brought in the Parks Master Plan, that was more of a city, that the planning commission has been, would like to sit and they did quasi-judicial. They've been taking a look at the way that things are set up and making decisions based on that. In talking to the current president, she's like, that's kind of where they like to stay and put their information. When we bring things to them, sometimes they take, sometimes they're not interested. They were interested in the initial portion of the tree ordinance that we're working on. But they only put a little bit of work into that, and then they just kind of push it off to you folks to make a decision. Sometimes the planning commission, and not just all of ours, kind of sees this, like, just tell us what it is that you want us to make a decision on, and we'll make this decision. But if they're put together as a design review committee, or if they're, they're put together as a citizens committee, they will help.
Well, that was my question, is that more appropriate? Because what I'm afraid of is that, these are decisions, the community, this community is very invested in the aesthetics of this community. Somebody out there I know will probably want to have a say. And are we the ones, how do we make a decision, how do we make a decision on the sign? Fair to our community, or should we have a
that is making the decision as far as what our clubs are going to look like.
Making the recommendation.
Yeah, making the recommendations to us. So it's not just 5 people making the decision every time. There's some kind of, community involvement and more eyes on this than just that. Because we're all fairly smart people, but I'm sure that there's something that we are not considering, to make this decision tonight.
Well, there's no decision tonight.
Right,
This
so
is
you
just-
want to see, but I think that there should be some other system for us to come to decisions like this, because this is, in the past 6 months, it's like the third thing about what is our community going to look like that has come to us. We said, well, the planning commission maybe should be involved, and the parks commission should be involved, and then if they say no, then it comes back to us. We don't have the parks. Well,
We should have that.
we should have a body that is saying, this is what we think, the direction of, we're not just primarily every time we get contributions, the time changes and we go this way and go that way. I think we're in a aesthetic.
Oh, but it's not a review committee now. Oh, great goodness
They
me.
do sell those things.
No black, no legs. Well, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
No, no, no,
If we're going to make a decision and nobody else wants to make a decision, I'll be happy to make a decision.
Well, let me tell you what the problem is.
To the,
Okay, let me tell you the problem is, and then we can go into that conversation.
well, I was just gonna say, I'm concerned about the planning commission, are still there, and for city council, I feel like the city councilors and your mayor are much more willing to spend the time that it takes on talking about it and investigating and thinking about things. The planning. Not like the distant. I spent.
Ultimately, the decision comes down to the five. We the planning commission can do whatever they want. Ultimately, it comes down to this body.
That's the final problem.
So I have volunteers, they don't
No, we're going to be honest. We can decide where to go. We don't really have anything to go over. We can go in any direction we want to go. But the problem that we have is that kind of got like in this next page here, this other picture. We've got a mismatch of signs. And we have some old signs that we need to replace. The other thing that needs to be thought about that, and sharing your point is valid about the pollution, is that I come from a resort background. Right? Everything that was in a resort had to look a certain way. It had to be nice, it had to not be intrusive to the views, it had to incorporate itself within a community. And these signs that we have right now are not necessarily doing that job.
It's a definitely an issue.
Yeah, and those are what's meant to make it less hard.
Well, this is, I mean, we're talking about this tonight, but I mean, we should always be making our decisions from, okay, this is what the short game is, and then we should also be thinking about our long. ODOT is gonna come out here and they're gonna treat us a brand new, beautiful, one-on-one corridor, and at some point, we're gonna wanna design welcome to your heart signs. And make, somebody's gonna have to make decisions, should those be illuminated, should they not be illuminated? Yada, yada, yada. And all of these decisions, I guess what we need to do is decide, are we gonna just, get right to the point and just make the decisions, and then 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when I'm out sitting and see somebody who has a different opinion, come in and say, I don't like any of that, let's change it, or are we going to do something that, kind of sets the tone and we come up with a direction and a way, a system of making these kinds of choices going forward so that they represent our.
There would be something like a parks, maybe that
I think,
inclusive with the signs.
and that's where that's, That's all I'm asking. If there's a shortage, I know how I've worked in a lot of organizations that have volunteers. I know how it works. And there are volunteers that actually show up to work, and then there are volunteers that show up to say, hey, I am a volunteer, and they like the title, but they don't actually show up to work. I know that we are in a community where we have a lot of people that might be very interested, that might not live here and be available all year round. So if it's a shortage of volunteers or lack of interest in the community, then that's the answer to my question. We will make this decision.
I don't think we have any crisis such as that. I think that anything that we can have. And this is what I want to do from this. Direction. The problem is that we've got a mismatch of time.
Yeah.
And I've got some of them.
Right.
And so I would like some feedback from you in the direction. And that's why I should find some of these ideas to show what it is that other communities are doing.
Right.
And not to get into any nice things, you know, such as using similar science situations to what the national parks or state parks.
Well, I would propose that, because what you're telling us is that we have an insurance agency where the people that are representatives and defendants are saying, hey, you've got a little bit of liability and here's something fairly simple and relatively inexpensive that you can do quickly to maybe mitigate that. And I think that we can't ignore that, but as far as going down the road and could we revisit all of this in the future? These signs are, what are these signs? $50 a piece? $40 a piece?
Yeah, let's just talk about $100 a piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And in order to run, they're going to need to be replaced anyway. So I think that if there are signs that we need to make, my opinion is if there are signs that we need to make right now that could relieve our risk, then let's do that. But then let's talk about how we're going to do something like this going in the future.
That was most important to me. I think that I'm not putting this in a situation where you guys are going to say nothing's happening. We need a temporary size, you know, out there just as it's in here. You know, or something like that. We'll work on our insurance company. But I think that's very close. But we agree, and this is something that's in here to the air start as well. This is what is improvement in our system. I agree with their thing, the way that they're presenting.
Yeah.
And so it's a great opportunity for us to figure out if we move ground trail signs with your logo on it, or you know, we stay with this, you know,
If we're gonna do signs, all the signs in your art need to be the same style and the same colors and everything else. So, you know, I mean, these things here, if you're gonna do signs up near E Street and G Street and Third Avenue, Pacific Way, you know, 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th, whatever it is, they should all be the same.
well, it's something for somebody to consider if we put a group together, you know, and we start working through this, is what is the national sign standard in regards to some of the colors? Like blue signs are information, green signs are direction, brown signs are parks and areas of interest. And so do we want to incorporate, I mean, this is, so there's a lot of things.
This is our little word, we can do whatever we want.
I know, but I'm bringing it up just to say that there's a psychology of how it's like, hey, you're arguing with other people, of course.
How long?
Purple. Purple is very real.
That's how we talk about
Okay, you know, I said, we're gonna have this town hall meeting at the end of January. During that, we can ask for volunteers to form a sign / art, whatever you want to call it, and get the input from the public. Because it's gotta be owned by the public, otherwise someone's gonna say something that's gonna be, well, you didn't ask me, and I don't like this. Right.
So I agree with the mayor and Dana about having a parks committee. And then when I was listening to Karen, I got a little weird because I would like the Parks and Sign Committee to be under the auspices of the planning department. They would have their own little team, but then listening to Sharon when she says that, you know, they probably could put a little rather than what they usually do. I'm wondering if that would be the space for the planning.
We have a good plan. We do, and we have things that we're excited about. I think that, you know, there's a possibility, depending on how things that, they would work out this order, you know, in the past, you're hard to use the planning commissions, these committees as well. And, I think I come to them, I was a couple of years ago to discuss financing at that time, they were that interested in it. But if they want to, you know, we can bring this to them and ask them if they'd like to be a part of it, or if the mayor would like to be, that's another option. I'm going to distribute the committee. Maybe I'd like to go to the committee. We can wait until the town hall in January to discuss the parks committee as well. It's something that we can accomplish anyway. Through the parks master plan, maybe they can handle this. And we do have some newer folks that are participating.
Well, another reason I'm bringing this up about being under the office of the planning commission, excuse me, is because when we get the planning commission report every month, it's barely a page. And sometimes it says there was nothing on the agenda, or they can give them something to do. Well, that's all. Sure enough for it.
I agree. We have a good planning commission. What we have is I guess some confusion amongst everybody on exactly what the role is. We had a lot of applicants here last week who said that they felt that the role of the planning commission was to be like a research and advise us. And I guess I share that expectation. I thought that's what they did too. But now you say, no, they just make decisions on the things that are actually put before them. And then the board managers will make decisions that how we decide or whether or not we want to agree with them. But if they are not going to be the research entity, then I think in this regard, then we do need a research entity, because I know, I can tell you right now, I agree that there's going to be a lot of outcry. When you pick one sign, there's going to be somebody who reads that sign, or somebody who didn't read that sign. And really, again, people around here are very passionate about what your looks like. I had people when we were remodeling our house, I had people come tell me I had to tear down my house, and I definitely had to put cedar on. I mean, they're all people around. And as much as that's kind of funny, and it seems crazy to you move someplace else. That is how this community is remaining looking like it does and being the place that we all want to move to. So I think we have to respect that a little bit, and we have to make our decisions with that. And thinking, what is this place going to be like 20 years from now? And I think that these signs, like you said, they can create an entity for us. Yes, some signs certain types of signs should follow the norms, but then there's also the signs that say, this is your, this is us, this is our identity, this is what we think of ourselves, and this is, you know, if we have enough respect for ourselves to do this, have respect for ourselves. If you're visiting our city, you know, this is us.
So, you know, my comment is, and I'm not trying to disparage the planning commission, by the way. There's those people that are great people, they have very good minds. When they set their minds to working on something, they do a really good job. But if they're not that interested, then it kind of gets pushed. Have some of those people. I don't be on that for this company. That could really make me interested. They all sounded really good. Yeah. They wanted to be involved. That's a really good.
I just think about people that all volunteer to take care of the flowers and planters and everything else every day. I mean, there were 20 people that, you know, just have to play, right? There was one person who's doing it.
That is a good point. That's an actual physical activity. This is not coming together. You guys, I'm certainly not expecting you to, so, you know, let our just go all off like ping pong balls and drawers. You
go back and check, this is what you meant, these are sort of lockups, what do you think? I think you're talking just a couple of years at most. And then, so maybe get some artists in town, maybe we have a competition, or we come up with more at the city level. I think this is an opportunity for us to bring the community together and do that.
Not to bring anything in California. People at Carmel, all their signs are the same. You know? And that whole place, all the signs are the same.
All hand carved streets.
They got a lot of snow there. They have a lot of artists down there.
I have another question. Okay, on this cover letter, this one with key points, or the whole first page. I just need a definition. The very first thing, signage replacement. City staff is preparing to replace outdated signs with new nature-friendly design.
Oh, well,
What is nature-friendly design?
looks good.
All right, thank you.
Looks like it belongs, looks clean, not an eyesore.
Not a plastic rich cast.
No, they got the whole features on them for the sport.
Maybe some others from like they do in Hawaii.
But you don't mean wood sign.
Well, maybe, I mean, some of the signs that we have replaced are at camera and put a metal pole and install the 4x4 wooden post, put that into the ground. Put a cap on it and a nice sign. Looks like it belongs on part of our trail. And it's kind of more nice. Now, if I was to ask Mark on this sign, he would like to install, he would like a steel pole, bury it 3 feet in the ground, and will never move it, won't have to maintain it. It's a steel pole sign forever. But what is it that they can do once? What's kind of important.
We have a lot of artists in this community that we love to be involved and have already expressed when we were talking about the route plan, they were talking about they want to be involved. So I bet we could get some people that could, take care of, and we actually have some artists in town that create signs for businesses and whatnot. So, what's happening there.
Listen, if you put a 4x4 PT post in the ground, in ground up that concrete, right? It's gonna outlast Mark McFadden.
When I was driving my house, I was drive, we were yelling at me, putting 3 feet, and I was yelling at myself, I tried to pull those out, so. Yeah, that actually, gravel, sand, makes things last a lot longer around here. The water, this is the artificial look, the design and how it operates is one thing, and then the look for the community is another. So if the council would like to get some more feedback and put the community together, we could make some recommendations on how to do that. Council could also send a planning commission letter saying, hey, we're interested in signage for Europe, we want to take this one on. And then give this another correspondence and have a discussion with planning commission in the next meeting in January.
And I want to go wherever you're going, obviously, you all are staff. If you need one of us to be a point person, it's just like we already have on that sheet, I'll be happy to be the person that keeps them on track and moves them forward.
The commission,
Yeah.
or we wait until after, we bring it up at the public meeting and test the waters and see how many people are out there. Then we get it.
And would we ask them, or would we, rather than say, would you like to do this, can we say, no, it's something that the planning commission should do? Can we not demand it of them, but just say, this falls under
That didn't work last time, so I think we should just ask them.
Okay.
Because I still think that the decision should come out through them, but rather than giving them the work to do, just like with the bench commission, we have a work group works on it. They come up with a couple of what he thinks. They go to the planning commission, they go back, they regroup, go back through, and then the planning commission makes a recommendation and sends it back to us. That's the way I see it. We're legislative body. I don't see it.
But you need it soon. You don't need it by this summer.
It's not an emergency. I wouldn't have a problem with asking for permission if it's okay to go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I don't have what time we need.
That's the precedent.
Yeah.
Or is it just gonna be for the tennis?
That's just a great.
Since a $40 sign that lasts until we, so it seems like the insurance negotiation can dictate to us the parameters of what we should and shouldn't.
Well, 9%, no.
No, I'm talking about what we say on our signs and where the signs are.
It's more liability states, yes.
But this, if the signage and everything else is totally up to our committee that's going to recommend to the planning commission, that recommends to us, so we can go, yes. Hopefully, if it doesn't go to, it'll be a yes, but, you know, I don't have a problem saying no to anything.
So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, we can help put together a letter that would be a request to the planning commission for their opinion on whether or not they'd like to be involved. Or if they think that we could put a citizens committee together. And bring that to them during the next meeting for discussion.
Well, I don't have a problem doing that. I think that would be fine. If anyone else got any,
As long as we do some signage as recommended by our insurance company, we're not reading wants to do.
So, yeah, I'm not, yeah.
you know, the liability side, I think should be a priority, yes. Whatever.
So in the public meeting, you know, when we ask the citizens, you know, who would like to be on the signing committee, you know, how many artists do we have in this town that would like to come up with some sort of logo, basically?
That's a requirement they'd like to put on them. I think that setting them up with, you know, having a discussion about signs, having them help us identify what some of the issues are. And then that identification of the idea logo redesign at that point, then we can have that discussion. Yeah, the group that they can help us kind of come up with that area. If we go into a public meeting and say, hey, we want us to be an artist, help us with the logo, we're, you know, we'll go through the process. And find out exactly what we like. But I think that's a fantastic idea because that's great participation. And then we get something a little flavor. Some people say, well, I gotta use a rich hat sign, what's your logo with a rich hat? Or you have a logo with a beach, you know, and so that sort of thing. You know, some towns do something that's important is that they're repeating something for the town. Is it the front of it? I'm just throwing things out from discussion. Is it the front of a train or the front of the daddy? Is it?
I was just going to remember.
Is it a client? Right? Is it a client? You know, what is it that is important to you guys that we want to kind of get out there?
I just want to really say, I think it's a catch that our chief came up with. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's that problem.
And props to design, the Sonic is the one that committee brought to folks here. No, that's not necessarily a community board situation. It's something like that.
And that's it, yeah, that's also, you know, the department.
Yeah.
And my position on that was that I'm going to interfere with his talking over his department, however, this is a citywide thing.
I mean, the reason that the fire department has the logo that they've got is because, you know, a bunch of drunk guys got together and that's, you know, many and all those old time people that actually use it.
We can't remember here.
But I mean, ultimately, the question is that Dana's bringing up is, well, how do you get those people on board with what you're signing to? I mean, how do we understand what the community as a whole would like to see happen? So do you draw prototypes and present them to the community? Do you go to the community and say, we're going to have a contest, come up with designs and submit them to us? I think you start with the work group, but the work group can be pretty fast, it's much faster than.
Depending on the size.
Yeah. You can work pretty fast. You can start off with gathering a lot of information and then narrow it down. You know,
I think you need to make it more like selective group.
So we can discuss that with the mayor and come up with plans.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll come up with a statement. And letter to the planning commission. And then we can further discuss the committee versus the planning commission. Have that discussion with the planning commission, have it involved, your ideas. And then we'll go from there. Is that all right? I'll take that to the planning commission.
Okay, so we got 20 seconds left before I'm calling the end of this. Please get a hold of your doodle and see what day will work in January. The doodle pool. You did it?
I did.
Preston, did you do it?
For January?
January. It was a email.
January?
Yes.
Yeah.
The way.
Town hall. It was a small survey out of town hall.
Yeah, the town hall.
And I missed it too. Andrew emailed, there was a link to a survey where you can go in and say whether you're available in that space, just checking this account.
Right.
Well, if you have any trouble, we're just gonna tell us the insurance.
Right. What would you prefer? I said the end of January between Tuesday and Thursday. I'm free on all 3 days. I like Thursday. I'll take Tuesday. Wednesday just draw some line for me, you know, just like another council meeting. And it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, because at least it's Thursday, end of January. Yeah. But I don't care, it can be whatever day is gonna make everyone available.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.